All right, welcome everyone. We're excited to have you with us today. Welcome to integrating artificial intelligence into virtual therapy sessions. I'm Sarah Plunkett. I've been a speech language pathologist for 17 years, a lot of different settings, including teletherapy. And we also have Cami Bible, our clinical services manager, moderating our chat and helping us out backstage today.
And then I'm Kay Kelly, school psychologist. I was in the field for 15 years in Kansas and Missouri, and then moved over here to Aluma.
All right, so we're going to continue with this Slido, and we want to get to know each other a little better. We love this community aspect, and so we'd love to know what your discipline is. I can see those responses coming in. We usually have a really good mix, and I'm sure this time will be no different. So this is exciting to have a lot of different disciplines represented here. Awesome. And yeah, as Jessica, thanks for putting that in the chat. You guys feel free to, yeah, put your responses in the chat in addition to Slido as well. Wonderful. Thanks, guys. And what about the primary grades everyone's working with? I know all of us are, in different settings and working with different ages, so we do like to see that too. Perfect. Type of school, sorry. I was looking ahead a little bit. All right. Perfect. Just a couple more of these. I kind of jumped ahead with the grades, but now we'll look at yeah, the ages and different looked at settings. Now we can look at ages. So this one again is usually another great mix. And again, thank you guys for yeah, putting those in the chat as well. Wonderful. And this is a fun one to me. This is one of my favorite kind of questions that we're able to do, responding with some emojis here on just kind of your rate. How would you rate your knowledge on, AI integration? And we'll address a lot of these things related to AI today. And so hopefully we can move those to the smiley face side of the board here as we keep going. Thank you guys again for all that great participation.
So, as we're going through, you'll find these outcomes listed in your handout. This is what we'll be going over on the next hour. So, as an engaged participant, this is what you'll walk away with at the end of the workshop. You'll be able to describe 3 risk and securities considerations for utilizing artificial intelligence as a school-based telehealth practitioner. Be able to define 5 key terms related to artificial intelligence, and then also construct a prompt using a 4-component prompt creation where we create either an AI command for a repetitive task, a content creation, or skill enhancement in speech pathology, physical therapy, school psychology, or mental health and counseling fields. So we'll have a lot to cover today. We have the prompt exercise, and then Sarah and I have some demos at the end. So we'll go ahead and get started. This is our last Slido before we get into content, but it just lets us see what you guys are most excited about. You can drag those and just make your own little top list there to get an idea of what you're looking forward to. And if what you're looking forward to isn't on the top, then no worries because we're covering all these components anyway.
Awesome. A good mix in these as well.
Yeah.
Perfect. So just before we dive in, there are a few caveats and considerations for AI. I know we've heard this so many times. AI is not, a substitute for our clinical judgment. We always want to be mindful of the fact that AI can and does give inaccurate information. As users, we are the ones that have to kind of train AI to perform in helpful ways, in the ways that we want to use AI. More research is currently being done to uncover what happens to our brains if we only use AI for, problem solving in other areas. I know those of us working with school-age children or that have school-age children hear a lot about this as well. AI can also fail from a clinical standpoint, for speech, for example, sound and quality errors or difficulty discerning some of those speech sound errors, might happen. According to the article, actually called AI is Lying to You by Sharon McMahon, AI predicts or looks for patterns in data it doesn't think or understand. And in fact, researchers have found that AI hallucinates up to 27% of the time. Current AI is based on statistical associations and dependencies, not always the truth. If you enter, I saw this listed in an article, I thought it was interesting. If we enter quote messy data, we're going to get messy AI output. AI is, reading what we have written or the input that we're putting there. And lastly, just another reminder, this information is accurate and current to the best of our knowledge of this date today, but AI is evolving rapidly. So we recommend, verifying any details if you are viewing this content at a later time. And so now we're moving into using Slido for some test your knowledge questions. So artificial intelligence is you can join this, sorry, with our QR code here. But our first question, artificial intelligence is a direct substitute for clinical knowledge and judgment. So we've got a true or false option here with our countdown.
And to enter this quiz, it does have you put your first name in, and that's just once. So if you are still working to get in for this one, you can join the next quizzes too.
Yes, good point. Thank you, Kay. And yeah, this is false. This is never going to be a substitute for us and what we can do here. Absolutely. So we're going to get started. As we mentioned earlier, this is a rapidly developing field. There are changes all the time. And so sometimes the guidance and regulations don't keep up at times. For some fun trivia and perspective, it's really hard for me to believe the actual term artificial intelligence was originally coined in 1956. And it's also hard to believe it was 2011 that the IBM Watson, a computer, beat a human at Jeopardy. So some fun trivia there as we get started. We are going to focus on AI through the lens of some helpful AI tools in areas, that a teletherapist might find helpful, creating content, being more efficient, having a better workflow, those types of things. And we're going to review a bit about AI and some helpful suggestions for skills that you can practice that really will stand the test of time regardless of, those AI advancements here. To initiate conversations about AI, it's really beneficial to start with ethics and our professional judgment. Student and client care is really the utmost priority always. AI does have a high risk in terms of disclosing personally identifying information, protected information. AI platforms are not designed to protect privacy. So we always want to check with our districts on their policies regarding AI. And then if they don't have one, you might suggest that they adopt one. That can be a really neat thing to, adopt that, be a part of that work. In telehealth, we must adhere to 3 laws that we'll keep in mind whenever we explore or utilize AI. That includes our FERPA, HIPAA, and COPPA regulations. A quick recap of those laws indicates we really must be thoughtful when we're inputting any kind of student information, name, age, school, into a system, as well as, on a medical side, any sort of name, diagnosis, health record information. And this can include documents that you would upload to an AI system. There are ways to use different incognito modes or general kind of more non-specific details when utilizing AI with student information. And then you can also turn off tracking data within various platforms as well, regarding privacy. School-based providers have had more exposure to some of these considerations of, data safety due to the regulations of COPPA regarding protection of personal information for those children under the age of 13, and also safety of using digital tools and security in their sessions. And this experience in vetting some of those digital tools and also platforms is really a good skill to then transition into AI ethics and also our student protection there. The most recent updates to COPPA in June of this year actually expanded the definition of protected to include biometric identifiers. This could consist of like iris retina recognition, face recognition, voice recognition. And the American Speech Language Hearing Association reminds us there is limited legislative and regulatory oversight at this time. So again, as we, do with everything that we do, we really have to consider that, ethical, professional judgment and considerations. We always want to keep that in mind. We have linked the laws in the participation handout as well as the most current national position on AI. A recent article from Lackwood Educational and Psychological Consults explored the capacity of redacting as a means to more open formatted AI using those platforms safely. But an emerging term, de-identify, could be a better lens for practitioners to consider. And so we just always want to make sure to consider all of those things like removing identifying details, like we talked about. A lot of this, can still be risky as far as identifiers, even student interests, disability classifications, behavior profiles. That could all leave behind a digital, fingerprint that would remain vulnerable. And the National Association of School Psychologists issued guidance indicating even that de-identification might not be enough. So moving forward, always recommended to use compliant AI platforms that are specifically FERPA and HIPAA compliant or offer a data use agreement, something like a business associate agreement. For summarizing or brainstorming when you're using AI, you'll consider maybe the format that processes data entirely on your personal or your own device and encourages discourse regarding approved tools and just the parameters around the use of those tools. So I know that is a lot to think about, but it's just a good to start to discussion on AI here. And so we've got another true false question coming up here. So we just talked about some of these, but FERPA, HIPAA, and COPPA are important considerations when utilizing teletherapy. True or false? And again, we've got our countdown there on the screen. Wonderful, thanks. Yeah, this is absolutely, these are very important considerations here.
So it's sometimes when we hear kind of all those components of ethics, and it can be a little bit of a struggle to know what's the first step moving forward. Like, how do we become familiar with data privacy and risk? Up on your screen, that's just one screening model that's out there. This one's done by Dan Flory, but it kind of gives that structure for building a skill in identifying risk when we're exploring these AI platforms. A lot of the platforms, like Sarah said, they're not specifically built around our discipline fields or have discipline field experts in any capacity on their teams. And a lot of the consumer open-faced platforms are not health compliant. But there are a lot of emerging ones. So if you're in a field, you can seek or you can kind of explore some of your discipline-led or discipline leadership-led platforms. I know that that's something I look for when I go exploring. Is there a clinician voice at all on this platform? Having those field-based platforms or discipline-led platforms, they're not a guarantee. But I do think that they have, in my experience, been more systematic and thoughtful about priority of care at the level that I would want to see in the privacy contracts and server agreements. I think improving our dictation skills will be a beneficial skill that kind of surpasses or like continues with AI. That's a skill that some people use and some people don't. So if you're looking for an easy skill to kind of enhance that will help as we're learning AI, improving dictation skills can be one of those. And then, of course, attending CEs, just like this one. I know Sarah and I are still out there looking for great CEs and professional development. It's just constantly changing. And so there's a kind of a need to get out there, see what people are doing, how they're using it, bring it back, see if it works for you. And I found those to be the most helpful. If you're following along on your participant handout, there is a priority missing key word there, and that's high for high risk. And I'm going to follow this one up with the test your knowledge too. So which of the following is considered accurate about AI? That AI always provides accurate information AI can hallucinate and produce misleading outputs. AI replaces clinical judgment, or AI is fully compliant with all health regulations. Yeah, so AI can hallucinate and produce those misleading outputs. That part we know for sure. The next skill set that I think could be helpful to kind of tackle is just understanding some of the data privacy pieces that are on the platforms. So I did put in homework. You don't have to do it. It's a snow day here, so you can definitely just say it's a snow day. I'm not doing homework. But it can be really beneficial as a skill set to start reading the privacy contract and user service agreements that are attached to either the AI tool or the AI platform that you want to maybe use. Reading that type of contractual writing over and over again um, can help you become more familiar with the structure, some of the terms, and then it's a little bit easier if you get onto a platform and it looks a lot different or even a little different. You can pick out those pieces a little bit easier. And when you're looking through those privacy contracts and server user agreements, you're going to be looking for some components of how is this tool or platform collecting and storing the data. And not just when you're using it, but if you were to leave using it. If you're going to terminate services or not use it for an extended period of time, where does that data go? So things you might look for in the agreement would be like, how long is it collected and stored? What purpose would it be shared or sold to? I was reading one the other day and it was a new terminology that I had not seen. They're renting. They're like sold or rented. I didn't even know you could rent data, but that was in a service agreement that I read just last month. So they're changing. It's just good to be familiar with that type of contract writing. Are they referencing any type of secure operations center, those BAAs, like Sarah said? If you're seeing any indication that they're being thoughtful of a level of protection, so have they thought about theft or accidental leakage or a data breach? Are they prepared to protect in some way if that was to happen? And then we also want to look to see if they're doing any independent audits. So some that you might see, they're listed on your slide there, but the GDPR, that's a really great one. That's a general data protection regulation. It comes out of the EU, and so it's not a US based one, but some US based companies do use it. We have high trust, and there's also a few where they'll give options for those business agreements. So those are all things to look for. Those are not the same as being HERPA and HIPAA and COPA compliant. So those would be audits that just show strong cybersecurity and thoughtfulness about protection. And then in addition, you're going to be looking to see are they FERPA and HIPAA compliant. We are starting to see some regulation come out, which is great to see. Not here in the US, but Europe just released their EU AI Act, which outlines some risks that are unacceptable or considered high, and they have violations related to that. But we have seen some stateside regulation come through. We had California Senate Bill 53, which is holding up some safety markers for companies in California that are AI based. And they also have some terminology in there about systems that don't have any human oversight and labeling those as cyber attacks if there was a crime committed without any human oversight. So we're starting to see some of that come through, which is helpful as a consumer to kind of have those additional privacy protections. I will say when I started reading the privacy contracts and service agreements, they're not exciting, and there's a lot of information on them. So I use an AI prompt. So I go through, I'll read them all and take my notes on what I think could be concerning. And then I take those links and feed them into an AI bot with an AI prompt and get a more digestible summary of it, which has been really helpful. And then next, we'll just look at some options. These are some that are out there. So AI is pretty robust. And for today's presentation, We're really just going to stay in that realm of LLM or large language model. This is where we're seeing like our generative AI come through the bots and the agents. So it's a lot of the terminology out there. When I was looking, kind of preparing for this presentation today, there's a lot of AI tech or AI term glossaries, but I thought Dell Technologies had the best one. It was the easiest one for me to kind of wrap my head around some of these terms. So some of the things that we'll look at today is generative. So generative AI is going to produce that content like text and images and sounds, and that's all based on training data. Predictive AI is kind of forecasting future behaviors or events, and that's based on the patterns of data, like data pattern recognition. We'll look at both some AI bots, which is like a software that imitates human conversation. That's typically text or voice, just commonly known as a chatbot. And then we also have some AI agents. I think when I was looking through AI agents, we have some out there now. The best way to describe it, I think, is to think of where AI agents are in theory. So if you were to compare like an AI agent to a self-driving car, you would get into your self-driving car, you would only select one destination. So like take me to Eileen's Cookies in Lawrence, Kansas, and then you wouldn't make any decisions um, until you got there. So the self-driving car would decide how fast to go, how safe to be, where to turn. You would only make one prompt. And so that's where agents are going, but we're just not quite there yet. Additionally, we have chain of thought. This is where they're kind of pairing two models together. So you'll take a reasoning model and you kind of put it together with an agent that has access to systems, so like a tool. So if you're thinking of setting up an event, that chain of thought would kind of predict the best response for you, and then use tools like your calendar and your Gmail to kind of set it all up and send it all out for you. End-to-end encryption, this is, not new. It's not a new term, so I kind of put it on there just to help bring some familiarity. So if you're a tele-based school provider, you've already pretty familiar with end-to-end encryption. But this is where we're kind of protecting sensitive meeting content on a server. And so if we're using, say, like Zoom, we don't want them to decipher any of the data that's in transit from one user to another. We talked a little bit about hallucinative outputs earlier, but that's really like an incorrect or misleading result produced by an AI model. So if the data training is incomplete, biased, or flawed in some capacity, that model may learn really incorrect patterns of information. I think what's most concerning about the hallucination pieces is maybe like 2, 3 years ago, they were really easy to spot, but they're starting to get really polished and accurate. And on surface level, they're just not as easy to kind of say, oh, like that's obviously not right. And so there's a lot more work, I feel like, to double check all our summaries. I have about three in a row here. So just kind of refreshing on some of these terms. The term hallucinative output, that refers to AI's ability to think and understand information in a human-like way. So true or false? So false. Yeah. So hallucinative output, that's the incorrect response that an AI might produce or think or try to create for you. This next one here is, what is the purpose of end-to-end encryption in teletherapy sessions? Is that to enhance image quality, to allow third-party access to data, to protect sensitive meeting content from unauthorized access, or to improve AI training data? to protect that kind of information while we're using those third-party servers. And the last one here, just to follow up on some terms, what does LLM stand for when related to AI? So is this a local linguistic method, a large language model, limited learning module, or learning limit mechanism? Which is kind of a tongue twister to say all of those.
It is.
Yeah. So large language model, yes. And I was going to mention after I read those privacy agreements and I kind of prompt the chatbot to like reread it and tell me what pulled from it. I'll also, just to help mitigate some risk, go into my settings and see by default if there's anything turned on that maybe I wouldn't want to be turned on. I've really found that a lot of the AI platforms by default have their training data turned on, and sometimes even their vendor connections to third parties. So those are things you can go in, read the privacy agreement, see if you want to explore on that platform, then you go into the profile and check your settings. Do you want this data being collected for training? Do you want it being sent to any vendors? So those are the two I've seen the most common. So we'll kind of look at some common AIs. That first column is really AIs that have been out there that are really, I think, really great. I've used a lot of these for generating new content. So this is like lesson planning, images, some grouping, even IEP components. Those have been really helpful for me. The second column is some common AI bots. So those are generating text and images. They're getting much better at their tables and charts, and those are based on prompts or data that we provide. When we're using the bots, when I first started, I kind of found that they use terms a little differently. So, for example, there's a lot of terms around like deep think or deep search or something like that. It made you kind of think, oh, they're going to be pulling only from cited sources, which really isn't true. That term research within AI use is just a kind of used almost as a way of saying that they're doing really investigative, maybe searching, but it's not always tied to something that's sourced or peer reviewed. But I've found that you can prompt for that type of restriction, and then it helps pull a more um, less likely to hallucinated output. And I've found that to be really helpful. That third column there, those are some of the AI agents out there, and they're getting like more and more access. I haven't seen them do that one command only in theory agent style work, but I've seen them be really helpful um, when they're kind of, particularly with calendar and like email components. They're also really great at Excel codes or formulas. So if that's ever something that you're looking to like find the great code, those agents have been really helpful in creating like a formula for you to plug into your Excel really easily. And I'll test your knowledge here. What's recommended practice before using any AI tool in teletherapy? To skip reading the privacy policy, review the server user agreement and privacy contract, use the tool without restrictions, or share client data freely. Very good. Review those server user agreements and privacy contracts. They're boring, but it's very good for skill development, I think.
Awesome. So now we're going to get into a little bit more discipline specific here. So in addition to the resources, that Kay just talked about, there are some that are highlighted specifically in the field of speech language pathology. I was actually really interested this September, October 2025 edition of the ASHA Leader. As all our speech therapists know, celebrating 100 years of ASHA this year. And so they were highlighting kind of all the progress in our field over the last 100 years and looking forward to the next 100 in the communication science disorders. And they were predicting things like the use of biomechanical feedback, 3D printing, and motion capture, AI, conversational avatars. It was a really neat article, AI therapy assistants, and all kinds of things. And one article even referenced for, AI for identifying dysphagia biomarkers of, people with swallowing difficulties and risk assessments, as well as like voice therapy feedback options, AI analysis for voice samples, which all of that, again, is really neat to think about. Another article highlighted the importance of just being ready and curious for the future. And I really loved this quote: if we don't shape these tools, someone else will, and they might not fully understand the complexity of communication, cognition, swallowing, the needs of people that we serve. And I think you could really apply that to any field and just kind of think about speech therapists or speech specific tools that are coming out. And so these are some of those. Jessica is described as an AI speech helper from the company Better Speech. It's providing personal activities for sessions. They state that this is designed to help SLPs, not at all replace them. Sarah Speech is an AI subscription app that allows for some home practice with AI capabilities. I was actually able to visit their booth at ASHA this year and kind of talk to them a little bit about AI. Similar to Sarah's, there's a speech LP that offers home activities as well. Language development reports using AI, which sounds really neat. And then this DIFIT for teachers can kind of apply across the board, but you can create customized reading passages, vocabulary lists, and more. And then there is the SL Piece bot. That was actually recently highlighted in the ASHA Leader as well. It's another subscription-based service that helps SLPs complete SOAP notes using your voice in your preferred language. It's fully customizable and HIPAA compliant. There's also other options too, just recently came up, Hello Note and Salt. They're more medically based. Salt is a subscription-based language sampling software, but there's really just this slide just kind of highlights the amount of things that really are out there for sure. Just some additional considerations here for actually how we use AI. So, do we need just kind of an image for therapy to use within a session? Do we need help writing goals? Do we want more of a narrative statement for an IEP document or an evaluation report? With AI, we want to be as specific and detailed as possible to train AI to get the best results for us. Be precise, include your context, define your objectives. You want to say, I am an SLP that needs this, or I am, an occupational therapist, I'm a school psychologist, things like that. Remember, AI is great for planning tasks and helping with that creativity piece, but it's never going to be a substitute for you. It's never going to be a substitute for that clinical knowledge, that clinical judgment, and professionalism there. To ensure student privacy, some tips here: you can use student versus using a specific name. You can use grade level versus a specific birth year, things like that. And on your participant worksheet, that missing word there is context. And here are just some other ways we kind of, can use the AI as SLPs. We always have that caveat with anything, this is not a substitute for you. For evaluations, we can use AI for things like summarization, narrative statements. For IEPs, we can use AI to summarize data. Kay was talking about that earlier. It can also help us with goal writing. Of course, like anything, we're going to use it to help, but we're going to train the AI and also use it to make sure that it's accurate and that's something that we wanted to say or wanted to use. When it comes to sessions, I think this is where the fun piece comes in and where the creativity really shines with AI, because we can use it for like a picture scene that's just completely loaded with particular sounds that we're working on, especially to target student interests, which is what I think is really, cool. Creating paragraphs or stories, you can get it to create a Mad Libs type activity for you, word lists, social stories or images. just a lot of neat things. For example, this image that you see was actually created using ChatGPT. So I used Google Gemini to help with the description. Ironically, ChatGPT called the prompt wonderfully detailed, so I thought that's interesting that I used AI to then use AI. But the first few images that were generated, there were misspellings in the posters on the speech room wall. One had a just massive, massive mouth tongue model on the wall that I thought that's a little terrifying, maybe for for children. I don't know if we want that. Other issues, with sizing and too small and things like that. And so it's just it's interesting to note, kind of how you then have to revise that to say, take the mouth model out, reduce the size of this, things like that. And then this was just an interesting thing to note. The American Speech Language Hearing Association published an article recently on AI in publishing. Kathleen Halverson and Michael Cannon wrote this article, and it's not directly related to AI in evaluations or IEP meetings or sessions, but I just thought it was interesting for some of these common themes, for benefits, summaries, increasing efficiency, reducing barriers for different languages. And then again, the negatives, those hallucinations, maybe some publication delays and bias and misconduct. So again, just wanted to note this that it's also, AI is everywhere. And so this is something that was recently referenced there as well. So we've got another test your knowledge here. And so which of the following is not a recommendation for using AI as an SLP? Summarizing evaluation data, creating social stories, completely replacing your therapy sessions, or generating word lists. Yeah, awesome. It's never going to completely replace you or those therapy sessions. And there is really much exploration into AI in education. As we all know, education is significantly under-resourced, and so there's shortages everywhere. Here are some things that we've seen that are exciting to consider, and just some examples for different disciplines here. Assisting in repetitive tasks, like we mentioned, evaluation soap notes. It can be used to draft grants or, different student nominations, maybe scheduling, recommendations, all those types of things. And then we also can think about creating new content. We just saw, materials, social stories, visuals, brain breaks, maybe some alternative assignments, all kinds of things that we can use for, new content creation. And again, you can see that as, an example here. And also for enhancing our own skills, reading a report, providing areas of needed clarity, or maybe I use too much jargon in this instance, insensitive language, all kinds of options there as well. All right, one more test your knowledge here. Which of the following is a benefit of using AI in those school-based settings? Eliminates the need for therapists, enhances clinical judgment, assists with repetitive tasks and content creation, and guarantees perfect therapy outcomes. Which is that benefit? Yeah, absolutely.
So we're going to talk a little bit more about a second type of prompt structure. So Sarah gave you one, and this one mirrors it really closely. When we were one day just like working in AI, we are trying to work through things, and Cami, who's backstage, told me like you should use AI like it's an intern and your mentor. And that helped me a lot. I was like, okay, that's really helpful. I also tried to have an AI created photo of what that person or concept would look like. And so that's posted on the slide too. Um, this structure is coming from Panorama, and that there's a prompt guide that they have as well, and that's in your participant handout. But we know that kind of to get the full capacity of AI, How we prompt them is like its own learning evolution. I've seen kind of all things the last 3 years, from like just tell it anything to context engineering and advanced prompting or prompt chunking. And there's lots of ways to go out there, and I'm not sure that there's one good way. It's just, what works best for you. But I think the panorama structure, it's 4 steps. It's a nice way to take some of your initial prompts and kind of put them in a structure that's hopefully going to give you an output the first time, or with just some additional prompting to get something meaningful. So similar to what Sarah said, um, to prompt it to act as a specific role. So like act as a SLP in schools, a school-based SLP. Specify the action, how you want it output to you, and then provide either an audience, a scenario, or a purpose. So that structure can be really helpful when you're building your prompts. I added some bonus things. I've found these to be helpful for me. I like to give it a writing voice, friendly professional, inclusive professional. Those are the ones I kind of combo together. Sometimes I'll provide all restrictions, or take away some time constraints. Like it's more important that you review this deeply, or and not just rush to give me an answer. Some of those prompts like that, asking it to only prompt or only provide outputs that have cited sources or peer-reviewed articles, or to think out loud, show me every component um, of your output tied to the source you found it. That helps with checking those hallucinative outputs. Just today, I was telling Cami, I had saw something. I was looking at licensures for India, and I said, "Oh, I saw that you have to be in India to do telebased therapy to anybody else in India." So we're looking at international licensure. And I said, but I saw that on AI summary and I cannot find where it came from. And so like that's just an example today where I couldn't find a way to kind of vet what the summary is giving us. So asking it to think out loud is a great way to um, decrease the work effort that you have to put towards vetting and double checking those summaries. I also found that clearing your chat, when they kind of introduce those memory components, which has been really beneficial for kind of learning how you write and your style, it also causes sometimes like a little bit of a clutter, where I'm really wanting like nuance or individual details matter. And those really long chats, it tends to get a little bit more vague on the output. So you can kind of clear those, start a new chat if you're kind of starting a new concept, and that can be really helpful. If you're following along on your participant worksheet, the missing word there is role. And I think this is our last test your knowledge before we get into a practice and demos. So which of the following is not one of the 4 components of effective AI prompt creation? Define the task, specify output format, include emojis, or provide a use case. Very good. Yeah, you don't have to include emojis, although they're fun. We'll look at it. Just a few examples here. These are both prompt pulled from prompt guides that are in your participant worksheet. So this first one is Panorama has 100 generative AI prompts for educators. And I just highlighted one that I thought was great, like generated checklists for parents to help ease that transition to elementary to middle school. I kind of already want that resource right now. So that's a great thing to have. This second one, this is from AI for education prompts. This one was really interesting. They acted as a speech language pathologist. They provided a script that a student was using. They're trying to find the source of where this saying is coming from, because I want to be able to provide a more individual, preferred topic and materials for this student. And so they were using that prompt to kind of search for it, which I thought was an interesting way to use prompts. And then the last one on here. Sometimes, like Sarah said, I use AI for AI. If I'm needing a bit more of an advanced prompt, I use AI prompt generators. So Prompt Genie is one that I use. I haven't really had to look for any others. Prompt Genie has a subscription side, but they also have a free side. And so if you're saying under so many prompts a day or a week, it's all free. And I only really use it for advanced prompts. So advanced prompts like the ones I used for the privacy agreements, the one that I used in the demo for master scheduling, those I went to Prompt Genie to get, and then I fed it into a prompt, an AI platform. So now it's time to kind of just reflect and see if we can put like brain to paper, a little structure for us to just kind of take in this information that we have before we get into demos. So you can see the structure on this side, and maybe we'll just give a couple minutes. You can put it on your participant handout, on your own personal notes. You're welcome to put it in Slido. We like to see them, or in the chat.
Awesome, guys. And while we're kind of thinking about that and looking at kind of testing that a little of what we've done with prompts, we're going to think about moving into some demonstrations as well as you're thinking about kind of what you've seen and working through that. We can kind of show you some examples of this information. So we'll look at some demonstrations for AI. Now look at some AI options for related service providers to create content for your sessions. We're going to start with Canva AI, and I've got my prompt already typed just in the interest of time today. Create a picture scene that features the following initial SH words. So this is an easy task you could do for language or articulation, any sort of describing. If you wanted to have some particular targets in mind, in this case, maybe the student's working on initial SH words. So we can put a few examples there and then see what Canva comes up with. As you can see, they've got those targets there. As always, you want to watch. To me, this fin looks a little distorted. You can kind of see some discrepancies sometimes in these pictures, but some different options there to look at with your students. You can see with the shark here, you can tell there's definitely a distortion there, which happens with AI generated images. But overall, a nice way to get a picture scene that either has some target speech sounds or some describing words or maybe language, categories, any of those types of goals that you wanted to work on in a session, you would be able to create that with Canva AI. Now we'll look at Chat GPT. So we've got a prompt here again. In the interest of time, I went ahead and typed this up. This is great for any related service provider. I stated I am an occupational therapist, or I would say I am, a speech therapist or a counselor. That way you are prompting chat as the provider type and kind of what you're looking for there. Create a checklist to help students get ready for the day. And then I just included some basic steps here. And then they generated an evening prep checklist. So this is great. I've got some fun emojis maybe for an older student. Then chat is going to prompt, hey, would you like for me to create more of a kid-friendly, colorful version? I said, sorry about the audio on that one. That one was quiet. I was trying to get it up as loud as I could, but just some options there you can see for related service providers.
And this next one here, it's kind of like a half and half pizza. So the first half is it's going over some content creation for SEL materials. And the second half is looking at Notebook LM. And it's a little bit more geared in the video to a school psych audience, but it's really, the skills there generalize really nicely to any related service provider working multi-team or multidisciplinary teams. So that I think was helpful for anybody based on the poll earlier.
For my demonstration, I wanted to show a content creation for some social emotional learning resources. So I'm working in Padlet TA. It's prompted me on social emotional learning because I customized my profile that those would be areas I'd be interested in. But you can see here the ones that they offer, and we're going to do lesson plan today. All you need to do is indicate your grade, a learning object, and then a prompt. It does give you some suggestions, again, based on what you've done in the past and how you set up your profile. I'm just going to go to the one that I've already created. This is for fourth and seventh grade, reflecting on some social emotional learning. And my prompt here is you are an experienced educational counselor specializing in teletherapy. And I was wanting it to create some more independent things to do as we're closing out the end of the school year. And then this is what it provided me. So you can scroll through here and you can see the little choice board that it gave. What's nice is that you can export this. So I did mine to Google Docs, which it will look like this. And then I cleaned it up so that it would fit on one screen so that I would be able to screen share that with the students during a session. For our school psychologist, I kind of wanted to look at Notebook. Notebook is really nice. If you're part of Google Suite, it's already available as one of your apps here on the side. So you can just scroll down and you can find Notebook. What Notebook does is it allows you to provide the AI with the sourced content that you want. So over here, I have added in some new testing docs, an observation and review of record. What I'll also do is maybe discover some to see what's out there. So this was maybe based in Missouri. So I might want to look up the Department of Education for Missouri eligibility standards. So you can write in prompts to see if there's any sources that you would like to add to this notebook. And then you can select the ones that you would like. So it looks like I just would like this one, the standards and indicators. If I wanted to, I can discover some additional ones. So you can select the sources that you would like. You can write a prompt in here if you would like to see just using it very similar to a chatbot. Or you can use it to do a reports. I like the briefing doc. I feel like that's the one that works the best. You can see here which sources it's based on. So we know it's based on these four. And then you can kind of see here what it pulls out in terms of summary. I have also played around with the video overview, which I think is helpful. It's really takes information and puts it into a digestible video, usually around like 4 to 7 minutes. So like here is a video where I had it review the parent's guide. Audio overview does, and you can see it here, is it puts it into maybe like a 10, 15-minute podcast style review of all the documents. And it's really nice just to hear it all out loud. So if you had a tricky case, it's a really good way to just kind of help process through some of those components of complex cases. It does allow for you to participate in the podcast so that it has like a raise your hand and ask a question. And so I found it really helpful. I know in the latest communique from NASP, which is the National Association of School Psych magazine, there was a write-up and very similar, the kind of noted the use for kind of summarizing evals and then using that audio overview to work through processing of complex cases. What
Wonderful. We are so thrilled with all of you and this information. We know it's a lot. We're going to do our final kind of Slido. And like I said in the beginning, we were hoping we were going to move more to the smiley face side here. And so I'm thrilled that, yeah, that you guys are feeling better about AI. It is a complex topic. We definitely recognize that for sure. Just a reminder of our course completion requirements. We're going to enter the link into the chat. I know we had a couple of questions. We'll also answer those. We did have a question about this topic, I believe, which is the course completion. So that will be your access to the workshop evaluation and also post-test. You'll complete that evaluation first, and then you'll be prompted to go to the next section for the post-test. And that post-test is required to be eligible to receive your certificate of attendance. And so you will receive that once you complete that test. And that certificate of attendance will be emailed to you within 2 business days. If you have any questions, that is our email, clinicalservices@illumatherapy.com. Please reach out. We're happy, to answer anything there. We're going to stick around now to give you time to complete these steps and just make sure that you don't have any additional questions. We would love to have you at another event soon as well. We have these next 2 webinars scheduled. These are our others for the school year. You can visit illuma.com for more information and registration on those. And we just want to thank you again so much for attending. Remember to receive that certificate. You'll need to complete the survey and answer the 10 questions on the post-test. I will stop the recording now, but we will stick around for additional questions and if anyone needs any help with anything. Thank you guys again for joining us today for this topic.